Dudley Bakes a Cake by Peter Cross. Text by Judy Taylor. As soon as Dudley woke up, he felt a shiver of excitement. His ears twitched and his paws began to tingle. Something very special was about to happen. But what on earth could it be? Then, through the window, he saw the cluster of tents at the far end of Furlong Field. Of course! It was the day of the fair! During the night, while Dudley had been fast asleep in his warm, cozy bed, the Shady Hanger Fair had arrived. Over breakfast, Dudley thought about how he would spend his day at the fair. First, he would have a go on the Dodgem cars, then on the Helter Skelter, and finally he would visit the Hall of Mirrors. Or perhaps it would be better the other way round. The Hall of Mirrors first, then the Dodgems, and the Helter Skelter last. As Dudley turned the pages of the newspaper, his attention was caught by the picture of a magnificent bicycle. "First prize for the decorated cake competition," read the headline. Dudley wanted that bike very badly, and although he had never made a cake in his life, he was certainly going to make one today. He knew that he would have to hurry, for the fair would soon be starting. The recipe book was very helpful on cakes, with 3 pages of different kinds, but each recipe needed some ingredient that was missing from Dudley's larder. The one cake that he thought he could manage was the carrot cake. He would need flour, baking powder, sugar, eggs, and 2 fresh carrots. When Dudley reached his vegetable patch, he was somewhat taken aback, where, last night, he knew there had been rows of juicy carrots. Now there were rows of large holes. "Someone has been stealing my carrots!" he exclaimed loudly. But Dudley knew he had no time to search for the culprits that morning. He would have to start making the cake, or that bike would be won by someone else. Back in the kitchen, Dudley measured out the ingredients into a large mixing bowl. He had everything for the carrot cake recipe but the carrots. All he had left was an old carrot end left over from last week's soup. He grated it into the mixture, but somehow there didn't seem to be enough in the bowl to make even a small cake. "I know," said Dudley. "I'll add some more baking powder. It says to make your cake rise on the bag, and that's what I need." To make quite sure, Dudley tipped the whole bag into the bowl. Then he tasted the mixture. It was awful. "What it needs is honey," said Dudley, as if he had been making cakes for years and years. He put the cake mixture into the oven and set the timer. While it was cooking, he could make the icing. Strawberry topping would be the most delicious, and pink would be a good decorated cake color. When Dudley returned to see how the cake was getting on, he noticed a very strange thing. The oven was bulging at the sides as if something was trying to get out. Suddenly, with an enormous bang, the oven burst apart. The cake was growing bigger and bigger and bigger until it rose high above Dudley's head. "What an amazing cake!" said Dudley, when at last it had stopped rising. "It's a good thing I made a lot of strawberry topping. It will look like pink snow." When the cake was ready, Dudley had to find a way of getting it out of the house. It was too wide to go through the front door, and too tall to go out of the window. "At least it's nice and light," said Dudley, as he winched it smoothly up through the trap door. Slowly, the cake rose out of the ground until it swung gently in the breeze like a giant honeycomb. Dudley lowered it into his wheelbarrow and set off towards the fair and the cake competition. The path to the fair skirted the edge of the field, and Dudley hurried along, looking neither to the left nor to the right. He went past the bramble patch and round Mrs. Badger's beehive. The cake felt heavier now, and Dudley's arms began to ache, but he knew that he could not stop to rest. As it was, he would only be there just before the entries closed. Dudley arrived at the cake tent in the nick of time and put his cake beside the others. He felt quite exhausted, and was aware of a kind of buzzing noise in his ears. Perhaps he had better get something to cool him down. After a long and delicious drink, Dudley felt much better. There might be quite a long wait while the cakes were being judged, so now was his chance to enjoy the fair. Dudley thought the helter-skelter was the most exciting thing in the fair, and he spent all his money on slide after slide. In fact, he was enjoying himself so much that he forgot altogether about the cake competition. It was only as he was landing in a heap at the bottom for the 6th time that he heard his name being called over the loudspeaker. "Will Dudley Dormouse please come to the cake tent immediately?" Dudley picked himself up and hurried over. "Ah, there you are at last," said Mrs. Badger rather crossly. "We've been calling you for ages. You've won the cake competition." Dudley could hardly believe his ears. He had won! The bike was his! He felt the tires. Then he adjusted the saddle. He tried the brakes. He turned on the lamp. He looked in the saddlebag, and he rang the bell. What a champion cyclist he would be! Dudley was so busy with his new bike that he almost missed seeing what appeared to be his prize-winning cake running off down the lane. "Stop, Cake!" shouted Dudley, and he leapt onto his bike to give chase. But the cake was already halfway down the rabbit hole before Dudley could catch up with it. "They must think it tastes of carrots," he panted. "Serves them right." And he pedaled on towards home, thinking of all the wonderful things he would do on his new bike. Just then, Dudley was aware of a strangely familiar buzzing noise. "I must be overtired," he thought. "It has certainly been a very busy day." When Dudley reached home, he carried his prize bicycle carefully down the stairs. The room felt cool, and there was no sound from the world outside. As Dudley settled down for a long nap, he was already planning the most exciting Dormouse bicycle expedition of all time.